Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another one of our webinars. I have to say, spring certainly seems to have given way to winter here in Dublin. And certainly the feedback we've been getting from retailers across the country over the last few days is that, quite frankly, trade feels as though it's a little bit wintry at the moment. It seems a bit soft compared to 2 years ago. Some of the numbers we've been looking at in terms of footfall certainly would suggest it's a bit soft compared to 2020. But clearly, isn't it much better than it was this time last year when we all had our doors locked? So thankful for small mercies, I guess, on that one. So the opportunity for retail in the aging demographic. Well, I have to say, I looked in the mirror this morning and I saw a few wrinkles appearing, and I quickly realized, probably like many of you on this call, dare I say it, that I might be moving towards that demographic rather too quickly. So I'm sure I'm going to find this quite interesting. I'd like to, in a moment, to introduce you to Orla Carmody, who is business consultant with Age Friendly Ireland. And I'm hoping that Orla might start to lift a few of these, give you a few tips and tricks around how to engage with this population, and maybe how to upskill yourselves and your teams in terms of dealing with that population. So I know she's going to push us and question how we might move towards this. There are 1 million people, I'm hearing, that are over 60 in Ireland. So it's an incredibly large demographic. And it's also, as we all know, a demographic that has a bit of money to spend. It's also a demographic that over the last 2 years has probably been, like many of us, has suffered. If we go back to the start of the pandemic, this was the demographic that was indoors for the whole time, not actually allowed by the government to leave their house in many cases. And certainly what I've seen since the reopening was announced back in May of last year was that they were first ones out of the blocks. They were the first ones in the shops. They were the first ones spending money. They were the first ones to be triple jabbed, and they were the first ones to start enjoying life again. And don't they deserve it? So, but anyway, as usual, Orla's going to take around probably 35 minutes or so. Feel free, drop any comments, any thoughts, any questions or anything like that into the inbox. We've got a little poll that we might ask towards the end of the presentation, and then I'll come back and throw a few questions at Orla, and let's have a bit of fun. Okay, so great. Orla, over to you.
Well, thank you so much for that. It's lovely to be here with you today. And I'm going to start with a quote, because you mentioned, Duncan, that there's 1 million people over the age of 60 in Ireland. The really amazing thing is that number is going to have doubled by 2050. And that's only down the road. We're going to have see twice the number of older people, and the opportunity that is there for you in retail. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. But the quote I wanted to share with you was a journalist from the Financial Times who was researching this, because this story of the aging demographic is probably as big as climate change, really. It really is going to have that much impact on our housing, our healthcare, the way we arrange our economies, the environment. There's so many implications, and we know the story about pensions and the pension pot and how that's going to be affected. But before we get into that, this particular journalist in the Financial Times, and he was talking about his own particular search history, and he says, "My search history seems to lead marketeers to assume that I must be desperate for companionship, I must be struggling with my health and ruminating on my death, with no marketing for the kind of things I'm actually interested in, such as great hotels in Rome and beautiful places to hike in upstate New York." And it's a lovely quote, because it is exactly the reality of older people nowadays. We hear that, 70 is the new 50 and 60 is the new 40. Our older people are healthier, they're going to be with us longer, they're going to be living in their own homes, they're going to be out and about consuming. And this is such a benefit for us in terms of the precious older people we have in our own lives. But it is interesting as well in terms of how we do business, because we have to look at how we advertise and as retailers, obviously, you're very dependent on how the products and services you sell are advertised by the big companies that make them. And we did a presentation like this very recently with IAPI, the Irish Advertisers Association, and they told us at the end of it that it was kind of eye-opening, that they really feel that we're still depicting older people as maybe older people would have been appeared or lived their lives 20 years ago or 30 years ago. But that reality has changed. as the Financial Times journalist captured it, the reality of being an older person is that you're active, you're healthier, you're out and about. And that's really wonderful, but it's something we just have to begin to start reflecting in our advertising and in the way we sell and market our products, and how we market them to this demographic that is a hugely growing demographic, and as Duncan touched on, is a demographic that actually controls a lot of consumer spend. And that's really what the opportunity is for you as retailers. Now, obviously, it's the right thing to do to make your business age friendly, to make your business welcoming to the older consumer, but also there's an opportunity in it for you. And we're really conscious that post-COVID, the huge emphasis for you is keeping the lights on, keeping the shutters up, getting back to normality. And here we are asking you to do another thing, which is to become aware of the older age demographic, and indeed to ask you maybe to consider appointing an age-friendly champion in your business and becoming accredited as an age-friendly business. It's a small little body of work to do for you and your team, but the return on it is absolutely huge. One of the training programs I did with a group from Ennis, the town of Ennis, some time back, and there was a lot of different retailers and businesses from the town on board. And a woman at the end of the program, or at the end of the training, said to me, she was a boutique owner, and much of her custom came from older women, and yet she had never once used an older model. She said, I never thought of it. I'm advertising in the local papers. I'm advertising in the local, colourful magazines, whatever might be there locally. And she'd never once used an older model. So following our training, she was going out to find one. Maybe she found Celia Holman Lee or somebody like that in Limerick to be her older, beautiful, glamorous model, and to start actually advertising towards the people you're selling to. So it's a good way of thinking about it, and it's quite interesting. So I'd like to share my screen with you now, if I may, and take you through some of the interesting stats around this, a little bit of background to the ageing demographics so you can understand it, and then what you need to do about it and how you can actually incorporate some of this thinking into your own business. And as I've said, perhaps then consider becoming an age-friendly accredited business, which we'd love to see you do. I'm starting with sharing with you a very personal picture, and that's my own mum, Bláthnaid, and she's 92. And I want you, as I'm talking today, to think about the older person in your own life. And we all have an older special person, mother, grandmother, neighbour, friend, that lovely gentleman down the road, whoever it is in your own life. And what is their reality? Mum is 92, she lives alone, she's a force of nature, she's still out shopping, consuming, walking every day, meets her friends for lunches, they spend their money in the local restaurants, she buys glamorous clothes, and I'm touching wood all around me naturally as I say that. But I really want you to think about that, and that the reality of what their lives are now compared to what it might have been 20, 30, 40 years ago. So to understand the ageing demographic, and as I've said, it's going to double between now and 2050 here in Ireland, there's the older age cohort and the older age cohort, if you know what I mean. So the World Health Organization, which started the age-friendly movement, puts it, I have it here as 65 because that's what my statistics were, but they actually put it now at about 55 as being the older age cohort. So if you're in that category, you're already one of the older people. But you notice that I'm saying even the word older. If you're 35, you're older than somebody who's 30. If you're 25, you're older than somebody who's 20. It's not an offensive word. Throughout COVID, one of the things that was reported back to us in Age Friendly Ireland is the use of words like aged and elderly and pensioners and all of this in the COVID reporting. And it really got up the noses of our older people. So we tried to use the word older because it's inoffensive. But anyway, to look at the statistics here, 65 plus, there we were in 2016 at nearly 630,000. That's going to be 1.6 million by 2051. There we are, the older age cohort again, and that's going to be up at 549 million by 2051. And that's the category that the older people, as I said, my mother is in. Wonderful that we still have them living with us, sharing with us their wisdom, sharing all of their knowledge and benefit. And really the benefit of that to society is huge. Here's a little bit more on the demographic change, and lovely to see that males are catching up with females. It was a thing that women lived far longer than men, but by 2051 that's going to really have leveled out so much more, and we're going to see a lot more men living longer as well, which again is absolutely fantastic for our families and our societies and our communities. But this aging demographic, we have an expression in Age Friendly: is this a bounty or is it a burden? You can see it as a burden. You know, the pressure, as I've said, on the economy, on pensions, on the housing system, on the environment. And we really have to, as societies, begin to legislate for this and begin to put things in place for the older community. And the impact is huge. And indeed, last week in the news, we heard very much about the pensions and that the whole retirement age. And of course, there are some older people who can't wait to retire at 65. But if you're fit and healthy and well and you don't want to retire, why should you be forced to do so? Or if you still have a need to work for whatever reason. I think there were some very well documented cases where well-known RTE people such as David Davenpower or Sean O'Rourke were not happy at having to retire at 65. And again, that knowledge that they would have and the way that they could impart that knowledge to younger people, mentoring, training, working part-time. Again, as a society, we have to look at this because, again, of that pension pot. And if people choose to work longer, I think we have to do everything we can to encourage that. And as a business, as a retail business, have you ever considered employing an older person? When you think about it, a friend of mine, she's in her early 70s and she's just got 2 days a week in a boutique locally to where I live in Drogheda, and she's thrilled with herself. She's 72. She's very fashionable, very stylish. Of course, she doesn't want to stand on her feet 5 or 6 days a week in retail. 2 days a week is fantastic because she's going to be advising young people on their fashion and she will be a brilliant employee. And the interesting thing is, older employees are rarely late. They rarely come in hungover. They're very reliable, and we have to look as employers as to this as a bounty, as I've said, rather than a burden. But the other bounty is this disposable income that older people have, and it's estimated that older people control about 50% of all consumer spending, and that's right across the developed world. That's the US, it's the UK. We have a lot of statistics around it. Later in this presentation, I have some references for you, and we will share the presentation with you afterwards, and you can follow up on those references and read up more on this yourself at your leisure, because it's very, very interesting. But they are out spending, they are out shopping, they're out consuming. As I said, 50% they control consumer spending right across the board. That rises much higher percentages in certain areas like food, like restaurant, like clothing, like homewares and home goods. So they're not to be underestimated, this category. So the of the million people working and living and spending in Ireland who are of that age category, it's an interesting time of life for many, many people. And why do people have disposable income at that stage in their life? And because often the case is the mortgage is paid, the children are off the payroll. I have 4 young adults. I think I have 2 of them finally off the payroll, which is an achievement in itself. But they've had time to accumulate savings, pensions, property. Not to ever underestimate those who are still struggling, and there are older people who are still struggling. Don't want to be Pollyanna-ish about it. But the facts are many, many older people do have a disposable income. The other thing to know about older people is they're very loyal consumers. They are great advocates for a business. If, somebody gets a great service in the local butcher shop or the local hairdresser, they shout it from the rooftops. They're very loyal and they do tell people when they get good service. Interestingly as well, I'm saying here that one of their greatest wishes as they go consuming and shopping is that they're relevant, that they're treated with respect, that there isn't a sort of an eye roll or a shoulder shrug because they take longer to do their transactions and do their business, and that they feel valued and respected as customers. And I think that's very, very important. And that's just customer service. And when you're doing your induction training with your staff, I'm quite sure you do that anyway. A lot of what we do in the age-friendly training, business training, it's common sense, it's just good customer service, but we're branding it as age-friendly because we have this idea that if you cater for the old, you cater for everybody. If you only cater for the young, you're excluding the old. But by actually catering for older people, it makes it very inclusive. So, for example, if there's a ramp or a stair rail or whatever in the approach to your business, of course it's of use to older people, but isn't it equally of use to the young family with the buggy or the chap who broke his leg last Saturday playing football? So by catering for older people, you actually do cater for everybody. And it's one of the things we're very strong on. A little bit about the Age Friendly programme. As I said, it started with the World Health Organization 10 years ago. As a response to demographic change and how it is really coming at us like a train right across the Western world. It's very embedded in government policy here. It was one of the 12 central pillars of the current programme for government. It's embedded in the local authority system. All 31 local authority areas in Ireland are fully committed to the age-friendly programme. And we were the first country in the world to achieve that, which was a great feather in our cap. The picture there is of the presentation in Slane Castle in December 2019, when the World Health Organization came over and made a presentation to all the county managers, because we were the first country to get over the line and to get this up and running. And it really is, it's a wonderful part of what we're doing. Throughout COVID, there was a huge emphasis on supporting older people, and there was an awful lot of work done behind the scenes that you probably wouldn't be even aware of. The library service, encouraging older people to become digital, those who weren't already, to get them online, all of the services. I mean, we would have read in the papers and heard very much about the GAA clubs delivering groceries, and that was just fantastic. And so many of the supermarket groups were really, really good on that, the pharmacy groups. But behind the scenes, a lot of it was coordinated by Age Friendly Ireland. And for example, we've an online resource, agefriendlyireland.ie, and there was a weekly newsletter that went out, and a lot of the older people came online every week to begin getting to know what was happening in their own area and to connect in with the services. We have an older persons council in situ in every local authority area now. So that would be 12 older people who are just activists in their community. There are eyes and ears on the ground. They were phoning people in their neighbourhoods, staying in touch with people, organising the health services, organising so many things. So since Age Friendly Ireland set up, about, I think it's 12,000 different local initiatives have been set up all over the country. So it's a very worthwhile thing that's going on, and it is coordinated. As I said, it's got the support of all the different departments in government, as you can see there, and it brings together all of these kind of facilities and services and makes them available to people. But to give you a little bit more understanding of what is actually happening and in marketing and retail and advertising terms, and how you can apply this to your own business. So we've said that older people are responsible for half of consumer spending. Yet interestingly, people over 50 might as well be invisible, we're saying, because about only 10% of marketing budgets are devoted towards them or to winning them over, which is absolutely fascinating. And again, we've talked about this with the older persons councils, and we've said, what is it about that? And they're saying, well, we don't see ourselves. We don't see ourselves in advertising. It's like we no longer consume things when we get above a certain age. And the advertising industry, in the presentation I made to them, we were talking about that because it's such a segmented industry that advertisers and marketers know, and you do as well as retailers, you know exactly what 25-year-olds are consuming, what 35-year-olds are consuming, what 45-year-olds are consuming, and why does it stop at 60? Why is age 60 to 90 one big homogenous group? As if I at 60 consume the same things that my mother at 90 does. We live completely different lifestyles and consume completely different things. Yet up to this point, advertisers seems to have missed out on that. But obviously it's going to have to change. And we're going to have to devote more advertising spend towards this age group, because if you see it, you can be it. And some of the older persons councils come back to us with things like, why are we never depicted in advertising buying a car, when older people buy cars an awful lot and they have the disposable income to do so? It doesn't kind of make sense. We don't have specific stats for Ireland, unfortunately, but there you'll see that baby boomers born between 46 and 64 are spending more than $500 billion a year. Like, that's just extraordinary. I have another statistic here, if I can find it. I'm just rooting through my notes here. Loads of information we'll come on to. I'll come back to it in a few minutes. But yeah. In the UK, the estimated spend, sorry about that, in the UK, the estimated spend by older people is 320 billion a year, 320 billion a year. That's from Ipsos Mori. And yeah, in the US, baby boomers spend $500 billion a year. So as I said, I don't have an Irish figure. We will hope to get that broken down. I was looking for it from the CSO, but I couldn't get it. But we'll get that again for anybody who's interested. This is this Ipsos Mori Future of Aging report. I've attached the link to it here. It's a long read, but it's absolutely fascinating. There are so many interesting aspects of our society and how it would impact on you. And depending on what sector you're in retail, there will be gems in there for you. So I can recommend it highly for you to read. But specifically on retail, a few things I did pick out for you. And it is that 82% of those over 55 say their favourite retail brand no longer understands them or what they need. How sad is that, that you could be buying a product that you love your entire life and now you start to say, well, you know what, I'm no longer relevant to them. They don't actually value or require my business anymore. And that's something we need to really work on. And then the other thing is the depictions. I've spoken about that as well in advertising, the depictions of older people. When you portray older people, get it right, that our perceptions of later life are sometimes wildly out of step with how people currently are in older life. Here's another stat: 31% of the British public would like to see more older people just depicted in advertising. And then 4 out of 5 of those working in advertising and media, they will agree themselves that it is an ageist industry. And we're working very hard here in Ireland with the Indie List and the Advertisers Association to see can we turn that around a little and do things a little bit different. And then here was an article from the Financial Times, and again the link is there. It's a very interesting one and some really good information in it as well. And that is that 1 in 5 UK baby boomers are millionaires. That's 20%. And that's compared with 7% in 2006. So that has grown hugely. So there's this disparity in controlling of wealth. And a lot of it has gone towards the older age category. The bank of mum and dad. I mean, we know with the property crisis here in Ireland now that our young people are finding it so hard to get on the property ladder, and many of them will only do so with some sort of equity release from the family home or mum and dad's pensions or savings helping them out with the mortgage. And it's a sad reality of life, but it is what it is. But it reaffirms the point I'm making that, again, older people do control a lot of wealth, and we should never underestimate that. Here's some very interesting information directly towards shopping and particularly for retailers. And it's to do with older people, or it's to do with how people are actually consuming and shopping, and particularly during COVID, and particularly the move towards online. So I mentioned there some of our older persons councils said things like, why are we never shown buying a car? And that's a very interesting figure that came out there from the Oxford Institute of Population Ageing. And buying a vehicle between the 60 and 69-year-olds, some of them, when they were consulted before the pandemic, were they going to buy a new vehicle? And 46% said they had planned to buy a vehicle in 2020. But by the spring of 2020, halfway through the pandemic, 84% of them were saying they fully planned to buy a new vehicle. Does the motor industry know this? I'm talking to the Society of the Irish Motor Industry as well about doing a presentation on this, because they need to know it. And here's another one from Germany, the e-commerce association, that seniors had few problems with online consumption. And according to the study, online sales among the over 50s rose from 40 to 55%. Now, this is really interesting. The age-friendly business recognition program training that I do, one of the early people who adopted that and came on board with this was Vodafone. So all Vodafone branches now have an age-friendly, champion within the store, and they have put the 3 simple low-cost or no-cost changes in place in the store in order to make themselves age-friendly and to achieve their age-friendly charter. And interestingly, they talked about that whole digital journey that older people are on. And one of the simple changes they put in place in their store, and I thought was absolutely fabulous, because they had gone to paperless. So everything they were going to be doing from now on was going to be paperless. But yet they found with the older people, they needed something written down and they needed to take it away with them. So they reversed their decision, thanks to our training, and they have designed a kind of an A4 pad that the sales assistants will use in the Vodafone stores. When the older person comes in, if it's a Friday or a Saturday morning, they have a special time there for older people to sit down and spend time, because they need a little bit of extra time to understand what it is they need to learn about their phone. But when the sales assistant works with the older person, sitting down, relaxing on that special time on a Friday or Saturday morning, they write down everything they discussed: the name of the iPhone, the number, the brand, whatever. The assistant's name is Mary. Here's what I did with you today. Here's what we learned. And then they pull off the sheet, hand it to the older person, and they take it away with them. And you can just imagine them going home, sitting on the sofa, reading that piece of paper again and reinforcing the learning, and taking it out a few days later if they need to. It was a lovely thing that Vodafone did. Simple, effective change. And when we ask people to take part in the Age Friendly programme, we always say we want you to put in place 3 low-cost or no-cost changes. This is not about putting in lifts and ramps, because that's a capital spend. And that's not what we're about at this point. It's much more attitudinal. It's much more about customer service, things you are already doing. You're doing really, really well. Your staff are doing really well. But when we ask you to do something, a simple change, if you can come up with something genius like Vodafone came up with, that simple sheet for the older person to take home, it's really brilliant. But one of the things Vodafone say to us is they don't want to leave anybody behind on the digital journey. And throughout COVID, they gave away a lot of free phones for older people. They got them online, and we found that a lot of the older people began using Zoom, began using all of these platforms. They're shopping online in a way they never did before, which is really fascinating. Here's another study, and again the link is there for you, and this will be shared with you afterwards if you want to look into it yourself. But for Americans 65 and older, 75% in this group go online daily. So they are really getting there. We estimate in Age Friendly Ireland that there's about 20% of older people, particularly in the older age category, who will never go online. They use the old-fashioned phones and they will not go digital. But that's only 20%. It means that there's an awful lot of them who will, and who are quite prepared to, and are learning and are using it every day. My mum has always been a flyer online. She's always booked her flights, done all of those things, carries on doing it, is really good online. But there were 7 of us. I was one of 7, so we made sure plenty of us to spread around the learning and the training. Here's another one here, the Swiss Institute, that suggesting that when COVID rule relaxations take effect, older individuals might return to consuming at local store and business. And that speaks to something you said at the start, Duncan, that people are dying to get out there again. And I would agree. My mum, her friends, they're dying to get out and about again. They did do online. They enjoyed it. They enjoyed the postman arriving the same way the rest of us did. They tried to buy Irish. They're very good at that. They're very loyal. They buy Irish. They probably wouldn't buy from Amazon. I think they'd be buying from local stores, even if it was online. But they are dying to go out and about because they like the personal touch. They like the chat. They like the friendliness. They like the conversation. During COVID, a lot of older people told us that when they went to the bank or they went to the pharmacy, the 1 or 2 outings they did have, that might have been the only person they spoke to that day. And a lot of people who've done the online training with me have said that they're deeply conscious that when somebody comes into their store, I might be the only person she talks to today. So I'm going to give her the time and I'm going to have the chat. And that's a lovely thing. And of course, that's just good customer service. And I know, again, going back to the Vodafone example, when you have young people who are on commission and they're on targets and they have to get through as many people as they can in a day, that's why Vodafone put in the special time on the Friday or the Saturday morning when all bets were off, when those targets did not apply, when you had the time to sit down with the older person. And it was a very interesting thing to do. But lots of interesting information there for you to look into as well. And a little more here about older people and retail habits. And what they are, what they do. Some information here from Checkout that 63% of 60-year-olds say if they see something and they like it, they buy it. They have the confidence to shop, which is an interesting thing for you to know. Whereas younger people would be less confident. They would think about it more before they buy. An older person is decisive. They just decide to buy it. They know what they want. They're comfortable spending money. Older shoppers, they don't take ages to decide. If they need it, they buy it, and they're not as influenced by social media on what to buy, whereas young people are, as we know, are very impacted by it. And they're loyal customers. They outspend younger shoppers. They've time to spend. They like spending. they enjoy it, they give the time to it, and all of that is very relevant and interesting, I think, for you. So I'd like to tell you a little bit now, if that's okay. I'd like to play this video which tells you about the age-friendly business recognition program, and hopefully after today some of you might like to do it. So I'm just going to play this video, if that's okay.
Hello, I'd like to invite your business to join the Age-Friendly Ireland Business Recognition Programme. What does that mean? Well, it means that your business values the older consumer and is prepared to put a few simple low-cost or no-cost changes in place to make the business more accessible and welcoming to the older customer. Why is this good for your business? Well, with the huge growth in the older population all over the world, a group that actually controls more than 50% of all consumer spending, it makes complete sense to put a little time and thought into becoming age-friendly.
I think it's very important the kind of welcome that you receive, or indeed that you don't receive.
Even the word thank you, goodbye, see you next week, or see you again.
Those who talk the talk are given priority over those who need to ask the questions, and I'm one of those who needs to ask the questions.
If I feel comfortable in some place, I'll go back again and again.
If you take part, you'll be joining top brands who've completed our training and who are already seeing the benefits of becoming age-friendly.
From a Vodafone perspective, technology is moving very fast, and we recognise that this can be challenging for our older customers, and it's really important that we leave nobody behind on a digital journey. And this programme has definitely been the first step in helping us achieve this.
I think this programme has definitely just reinforced our own commitment to our older customers within the community.
If you are age friendly and you are appealing to this audience, you're appealing to an awful lot more than just the older demographic.
We'd love to see you take part in the Age-Friendly Business Training Programme and look forward to recognising and awarding your age-friendly business status. You'll find more information at agefriendlyireland.ie.
So that's the age-friendly business program in a nutshell. And so I was just scrolling through some of the comments there while we were playing that, and thank you for those. We'll go through them at the end. Some fabulous comments. One there about toys and grandparents. And yes, absolutely. When we did the pilot on the age-friendly program a number of years back, Smith's Toys were cooperated with us, and they hugely value the grandparents because the grandparents have the disposable income and buy the toys. Young parents are paying mortgages and putting shoes on the feet and putting food on the table. So they really do hugely value the older parents, because it's the grandparents who buy a lot of the toys. So yeah, the Age-Friendly Business Recognition Programme, we do it if you're a big multi-branch business like Vodafone or Gelata, you saw there, or Bank of Ireland. We do the training exclusively for your own branches, and my time in terms of delivering the training is covered by Age-Friendly Ireland, so there's no cost to you. But if it is, if you're a smaller company or a smaller retail outlet, what we do is we do a town training. So we do Dunleary, or we do Ennis, or we do Cavan, and the local enterprise office and the chambers of commerce organise it and put together 20 or 30 businesses, and we get you on the training together. And we do a bit of sort of breakout into rooms and chat if it's online, or we can do it live as well. And it's really good for businesses to kind of chit chat with each other and to share ideas and to share what you notice about your older customers. So that works out very well. But basically it's a 4-stage process. You identify a member of your staff to act as the champion. So the age-friendly champion doesn't have to be the manager or the owner. It can be anybody who's just interested in doing this. And sometimes they wear a little badge. I'm the age-friendly champion. So the older person knows I'm not bothering that person if I need to take more time or ask for more explanation or whatever. So the age-friendly champion, once they're nominated, they come on our training program. It's about an hour and a half online, or sometimes, as I said, in a town. We do it live. It's a lot of fun if we can do it live. It takes about a half day. Then you go back to your business and you discuss with your customers and you discuss with your team what 3 simple changes you can put in place in your business to make yourself age friendly. And the changes, as I've said, are low cost or no cost changes. But one of the things that's really important is that you do consult with your older customers. As age friendly, it's one of our central sort of premises that we never assume we know what older people want. We ask them. We're consultative. So we send you a very simple little survey, or you can do your own, and you simply ask your customers, are we doing enough for you? Is there anything more we can do? How can we help you? How can we make your shopping experience a little bit better? You saw there on the video, Gelata was one of the hotel groups that we worked with. throughout COVID, and they were closed down. So they did the survey with their database, their older customer database online, and they got back great suggestions about turning down the sound in certain areas, about when an older person checks in that you put their room really close to the lifts rather than down the other end of the corridor, and just interesting things like that, or make the menu font sizes a bit bigger so we can read them. Lots of interesting, great suggestions. Another great suggestion was reading glasses. Do you know when you go out without your reading glasses and you can't see your credit card and you can't make things out? One of the things was a box of reading glasses behind the cash desk or the reception in the hotel. A +1, a +2, a +3, and if somebody forgets their glasses, they borrow them, sanitize them, back in the box. Such a simple change to put in place. And by putting 2 or 3 of these changes in place, you become an age-friendly business. So once you've decided what your 3 changes are, you notify us back in head office of Age Friendly Ireland, and we send you out your charter, and the charter you can frame and put behind your cash desk or behind your reception. You get a decal to show in your door that shows you're age friendly. There it is, recognised age friendly business. You get listed in the Age Friendly directory. You're entitled to apply to put something project forward for the Age Friendly Annual Awards. And, there's a lot of good reasons to do it. It's low cost or no cost. It opens up this business for you. It's making a very strong statement to an older person. We value your business. We respect you. We want you. We know you're good for us, and we're going to help you out in whatever way we can. And of course, because it's the right thing to do. It's a feel-good thing. And I think we're asking you to take on board doing something like this at a time when you're really busy and you're getting back to normal. And as you're saying, footfall is low. But at the same time, I think we're more aware than ever of older people. We're more aware of the more vulnerable in our society because of COVID. So maybe it's something kind of positive that's come out of it. And there's a real feel-good factor for yourself and your team if you're working with them. We're going after our age-friendly accreditation. This could be your granny that's coming in here. It could be your mum. That's why we're doing it. And we make it very personal like that, which is absolutely terrific. And the benefits for your business are, of course, the recognition that you're part of the Age Friendly programme. It's an international movement. We have to do this as a society. As I say, it's as serious as climate change, the ageing demographic. And you're part of this movement, and it's a strong statement about your business and your values. And diversity and inclusion is such a huge part of what we have to be nowadays. And sometimes you kind of think, well, ageism is one of those pillars of diversity and inclusion that we're not really, or we haven't really addressed properly yet. And I think it behoves us to do so. I mentioned the older persons councils. They are a fabulous resource to us because they're in every local authority area. They're a lively, vocal, wonderful group of people. I've done a lot of training with them and gotten to know them, and they're just fabulous. And when we ask them to comment on the various things we're working on, they don't hold back. They absolutely say what they mean, and they give us great insights as to how they're depicted in the media, how they're depicted in the news, what they like, what they don't like. One of the ladies said to me that the way older people are depicted in the news, she said, every time COVID is mentioned, with baggy stockings dangling around the ankles, she said, I wouldn't clean my house in the clothes they show us wearing. She said, I am very smart and fashionable, and I don't know why they depict us that way. So that's one of the things. But some fabulous comments here from people. Here's Liz with full active lives. There's May saying, I'd like to see an older person in advertising showing buying a new car. Why not? Maybe a car manufacturer would sponsor an older brand ambassador. Wouldn't that be a great thing to do? Here's Mary saying she travels, she gets out and about, she does loads and loads of things. Why is she not depicted as showing that? One older lady said to me, why are we only ever shown using stair lifts and tennis Our lives are much, much broader and more interesting than that. And she had a point. There's a lady playing golf at 90. There's a man marshalling a park run every week. He's just done his 100th event. People playing golf. Fitness, walking, hiking. They say that, why don't you ever show us hiking or doing interesting things like that? Here's a lovely comment from Susan in an ad for a restorative face cream. Why is the model 45? She should be my age. I'm the one who needs and will buy a restorative face cream. Absolutely true. So it's very, very interesting. And that last one there from May, I absolutely love that. The word elderly sounds bent over, wrinkled. The word older is strong and upright. It is a strong and upright word. That's really a skate through what I wanted to tell you about today. There's a lot of great comments coming in there, Duncan. Maybe we'll take some of those and we'll have a little bit of chat about what I've heard. I'd love people to interrogate it a little more.
Great stuff. Yeah, thank you, Orla. And maybe just anybody, if you've got any thoughts, just bang it into the chat box there, and we'll come to it. But I guess what goes through my mind, Orla, just listening to what you said, thank you. I think it's superb, and I think I absolutely around older people, not elderly people. I'm with you totally. There's a piece here when you were talking around certain shopping times of the year, and I know, or certain shopping times of the week, and I know this came up during COVID. It was a big issue made by a number of retailers, particularly some of the larger supermarkets, who said, we'll devote that time from maybe 9 until 10 on a Wednesday morning for our elderly customers or our older customers. How much of that is seen as beneficial, and how much of it was perceived perhaps a little negatively by the older customer? In other words, I'm being marginalized here. I'm being perhaps patronized a little bit that I can't manage to do my shopping with everybody else. What's your view on that?
I think the answer to that is that older people are not a homogenous group and everybody is different. And again, I always say, you work in retail, a lot of you're at the front line. I think you could have a degree in psychology because you've seen every humankind stand in front of you, and you've seen every mood and people who are stressed and people who are harassed and people who are whatever. And the older person who wants a help with their shopping carried out to the car, and the older person, thanks very much, I'm fine, I can manage. And that's just the different personalities. And I think we have to be aware of that we offer help. I had somebody on a call like this morning, and he was saying he works in a museum and they have a special offer for a reduced price for somebody over 55 or 60 or whatever. And he said, I'm always hesitating, do I offer it to them? Because if I look at you and I judge you to be over 55 and I offer you the cheap price, what am I saying? And I said, no, you need to put a sign up on the wall. If you identify, to use the expression the younger people all use, if you identify as an older person, ask for the discount. And he laughed and he said, I'm putting that sign up tomorrow. So it's up to people to decide what they want and the help they want. And we just have to be a little bit sensitive about it. But I would say for you, those of you in retail, this space, be confident, it inside out and back to front, because you've seen it every day in front of you.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? And just in terms of the points come up, I'm just scrolling through some of the points that have been raised here, and this thing around online. We tend to think of online shopping as something that my 21-year-old son is into, but the older you get, the less you're into it, and yet it does appear as though the older customers really embraced online shopping, particularly during the pandemic, when, let's face it, they couldn't do anything else in many cases. That
they did.
To see this is a big opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, it was needs must. I mean, they absolutely had to. They were stuck in their homes. They couldn't get out. A lot of them did have a device that they could use. They did have a laptop, and they began to play around with it and find out how to shop online because they had to. And I think a lot of the retailers and the online businesses began to simplify, knowing that a lot more people were coming on. They began to really simplify how you got on, how you found your product, how you shopped. I mean, I noticed it myself, that the various sites that I would have used traditionally over the years, and it's got much easier. You can get in, you can find what you want, you can pay for it. And that's as the whole online shopping thing evolves. But I think the interesting point that we mentioned there, that maybe that will stop because they actually want to go back out again as soon as they feel safe, because they like the outing, they like the socialization, they like meeting their friends. But you mentioned there the kind of special times in towns for various things. When we've done the training like this with a town, as I've done with, as I've said, with Ennis, with Cavan, and when you get a lot of the retail businesses online together, they start bouncing around the ideas that they can actually put in place in the town. And there was one town where the transport company said, well, I can do a special offer on a Wednesday morning. And somebody else said, well, I'll do a special coffee rate and what have you on that morning. And the other thing then they began to say, the businesses, that they didn't want to rush the older person. If they come in and they just want a coffee and a scone, don't be rushing them thinking that you're going to sell a lunch to the next person. You may not. And one lady made a really valid point. She said she runs a coffee shop and a catering sort of a little business. And she said the girls who she was training, her staff, would be falling over somebody who came in to book the catering for a first communion because that was a few €100 worth of business. And they'd be kind of a bit dismissive of the older lady who comes in and just has the coffee and the scone and sits in the window seat and kind of takes it up all morning. And she said, add up how much that woman spends on that coffee and scone every morning at 11 o'clock. She's there every day. Wow, what does she spend with us in a year? And it just made sense, you know. So it's that kind of thing we have to take each case as we come across it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just, I mean, being really hard and commercial over this, right?
Please.
Those businesses like those retailers like Vodafone that you mentioned there, you know, have we got stats that are proving that if you embrace this, it puts more money in the till? Has that been analysed yet, or till too much?
We're too early, but we are actively asking them that. Can they come back to us with some sense of it? We believe there has to be a really strong return on investment. There has to be. It's just logical. We don't have the stats to back it up as yet because our program was launched nationally 6 months ago. Before that, we piloted it in various towns around the country. One of the first towns or city we piloted in was Kilkenny, and that was about 3 years ago. And about 60 businesses signed up to it. And they would have fed back to us that time that definitely there was a return on investment. Particularly, there was a group of about 7 or 8 restaurants in the town that signed up to the program, and they designed for themselves a little brochure that showed exactly where the restaurants were, a little map of the town, and you know, they had special offers for older people, smaller portions if they didn't want to be eating a big plate and wasting half of it or whatever. Lots of little things they did. And they said to us that the bus tours that came into the town with the older people on their activities and their day outs and the historical societies, they would find that brochure and they would patronise the restaurants deliberately and specifically that were on that brochure because they were age friendly. So we've anecdotal evidence like that. But until we had about 10 businesses, multi-branch businesses that got on board with the programme last June, and until we have them up and running about a year, till we get an actual confirmed stats or can they give us any information on what the return on investment would be. But it has to be, you know, I'm very confident.
Yeah, and then just the last couple of things. I know there's a load of really good stuff that's been put there in terms of the chat around, you know, there's often messages around here around just the right thing to do, you know, around if you're age friendly in some way, that you're not only age friendly but somebody that comes in a wheelchair is likely to have been, you know, find their way around the store a little bit easier than all of that. So it's just really the right thing to do. And I'm particularly struck by your point you raised earlier there about wishing to stay relevant. You know, this age profile that wants to stay relevant, and the fact that you know, most of the models you're seeing on being promoted are actually younger models as opposed to the older models. I wonder whether that's being done much. Actually, you referenced the boutique owner there in Ennis, but I wonder how much of that is being embraced in terms of their marketing.
Well, what else we've done in this regard is we've appointed an age-friendly ambassador in every county. So Celia Holman-Lee is the age-friendly ambassador in Limerick. So we've got a list of names who've just come on board, and they're former county footballers and all kinds of fairly well-known people in business and in society and in sport. And we've asked them as well to be kind of the voice of aging, that, you know, look at me, I'm a player, I'm fit, I'm out and about, and, you know, don't underestimate me or dismiss me. So that's one thing we've done. The other things we've kind of done is again ask for feedback from the businesses we've worked with, and then of course this kind of presentation I'm doing here with you today, we're working very closely with the broadcasters, with the advertisers, with the local radios. We're really working on reaching as many people as we can with this message that older people should not be underestimated for lots of reasons. Not only because they have money to spend or because they're valued members of our community, but because it's the right thing to do, as you've said yourselves. But also just working with these organisations in order to get this message out there that the world is changing, it is growing older, and there are many, many implications for us across many, many different facets. But the one that I can help with and the one I can work on is how businesses deal with it. And one of the things is customer facing in terms of how we give that welcome to our customers. But the other thing we have to look at is as employers, and it is how we employ people. And we've made a proposal to Minister English on the ageing in the workplace. And we're looking for a lot of different HR managers throughout the country to come on board, what we're going to call a community of practice, and to share experience and to come up with best practice so that businesses can actively look at how older people can actually stay in the workforce longer. Somebody put up a comment there that they love Sean O'Rourke. Why wouldn't you? Isn't he a fabulous broadcaster? And imagine that, closing a door, good luck, thanks, here's your coat, where's your hurry, we don't need you anymore. What about all that information in his head? How do we share that with younger people? It's ridiculous to say that somebody at 65 should just walk away, you know.
Yeah, and I think he's open for business at the moment now, isn't he?
I think so.
That'd be really great. So look, I guess one final thing then, Orla, if you were to leave this group with one message around what they could do tomorrow morning, what would it be?
Well, I would like you to consider what 3 simple changes you could put in place in your business if you were to go back and talk to your staff, talk to your customers. Is it a seat by the door? Is it a water cooler? Is it better signage? Is it better lighting? Is it better sound? What could you put in place in your business? What 3 simple changes could you put in place in your business in order to become an age-friendly business? And if you could nominate an age-friendly champion, somebody, as I said, one of your staff, come on our training. Let's get you accredited as an age-friendly business. And when you become an age-friendly business, you can use the age-friendly, the lovely, colourful age-friendly logo there. You can see there, you can use it in your brochures, on your websites. You can use it on your door. And it is like, come on in, we're open for your business. We want your business. We value you. That is a very strong message to send out to older people. And stand back and wait for the increase in turnover as a result. We have a little poll that asks those exact questions.
Yes, sorry, you're right. Yes, let's find that up.
Let's find that out. Yeah, thank you. So if you could actually respond to this, please, that would be absolutely great. Do you know, or could you estimate what percentage of your own customers are in the older age category? And think of the younger older age category, as I said, 55 plus, and the older age category. Do you know, or could you estimate what percentage are in these categories? And that's a simple yes or no. And the next one is, do you know what percentage of your turnover comes from these categories? And that's something for you to know. I don't need to know, but it's for you to know as a business owner. Do you know what comes from them? And thirdly, then, do you think you could actually increase your turnover by focusing more on these categories and sending that message out that we want you, we value your business, we're here for you, we will give you the extra time you need. Somebody put a message up there that a specific shopping time for older customers is ageist. You're absolutely right. In a lot of businesses, it would be. I think that's Jonathan, and thank you for that. But Vodafone felt in their instance, they had to do this because otherwise their customers and their customer service agents were feeling pressured that we need to get through this person and get on to the next one. And they just wanted to take that foot off the pedal at a particular time. But you're absolutely right. It may not work for your business at all, and it might not be relevant. So thanks for that comment. But could you increase your turnover by putting a few specific things in place to say to older people, you want them and you value their business? And then the fourth and final question there, as a result of today's session, will you view your older customer base any differently now as a result of what you've learned here today? And the answers to those questions will be just very useful to us, just to have that come into us and see.
Great stuff, Orla. Thank you very much. We'll let everybody just fill that out. And then if you need to drop off or whatever, we'll share this on our member update tomorrow, which should be coming out around lunchtime. We'll share the results back to everybody, and obviously we'll take these away and just get a feel for what the situation is out there. I have to say, I know we've been talking Vodafone, but there's one here around Air introduced a new age-friendly care from Air. That's a good dedicated time from 10 till Monday to Friday for over 65. So again, seems like there's a lot of people getting into this kind of space and becoming more aware. And sure, on the back of what you've said today, Orla, that's this is only going to generate more momentum.
Good. I'm flipping through the questions here as well, and children's toys come up again. Yeah. And a good point about the wheelchair ramp. Somebody who was pregnant felt they were locked out of a shop. Absolutely. You know, if you cater for the old, you cater for everybody. Footfall a bit lower at the moment, but I think that'll change. I think people will start coming back. I know my own mum and her pals chomping at the bit to get out and have their lunches again. They cannot wait, and they will be giving their business to other people. And a lot of nice compliments about my presentation. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Great stuff. Orla, thank you. We will share these results with you when they come through. Make sure everybody gets given an opportunity to fill that little survey out, the poll out. And all that remains for me to say is thank you so much. Hopefully we'll get a few people signing up for the next step of this, and really appreciate your time this afternoon.
And thank you for having me. Thanks a lot.
Business consultant with Age Friendly Ireland. Thank you very much indeed. Bye for now.
Indeed. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.